the Russians' deaths for that matter, where the opposition has launched a veiled attack at the centre after 2 Russians were found dead in an Odisha hotel. Senior Congress MP Manish Tiwari has tweeted saying, and I quote, "Russian tycoon, war critic, offbeat hotel, convenient window, fall, death, colleague died 2 days earlier, same hotel, both cremated in India. If this is not unnatural, then I did not go to law school," unquote. That is what Manish Tiwari had tweeted. And this comes after the Russian embassy said that no criminal aspect was seen based on police investigation so far. Remember, one of the person found dead was a Russian tycoon, Pavel Antov, who fell from the terrace of the 3rd floor hotel. He was also one of those who openly criticized the Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But the 2 deceased Russian men have been identified as Pavel Antov and Vladimir Bydanov. They were on a visit to India as part of a tourist group. While prima facie it might look like an accident on vacation, the deaths now remain shrouded in mystery given Antov's background. Now, the death of Pavel Antov is just one of many involving Russian businessmen that remain shrouded in mystery. Nearly a dozen high-profile Russian businessmen have been found dead, committed suicide or died this year in what have been termed as mysterious circumstances. Several Russian critics in the past too have been found dead, with the cause of their deaths being shrouded in mystery. And to take you through more details and discuss this entire case of mysterious twin deaths in Odisha of Russian nationals, I am joined by my guest Amitabh Singh, who is an associate professor for Center for Russian and Central Asian Studies from JNU, and Tanvi Purthi, who is a political analyst. Appreciate you joining us on this topic that we have been discussing here at Mirror Now. First, across to you, Mr. Amitabh Singh, since you are a professor talking about Center for Russian and Central Asian Studies. So when you see an episode of this nature takes place in a place like India, in Odisha, where the hotel was an offbeat hotel, do you think it does raise an eyebrow that there is something that meets more than the eye for that matter, that there is something off about this entire episode? 2 Russian men, one of them is a wealthy diplomat known to be a critic of Putin. He was somebody who was a vocal critic against the war that Russia unleashed on Ukraine. And under mysterious circumstances, their bodies are found 2 days apart and they are cremated. They are not even buried, or their bodies are not even repatriated. Do you think there is more than what meets the eye and it needs a thorough investigation? And that truth should come out, of course, as India has to be answerable to their counterparts in Russia.
See, I don't want to go into the details of the investigation that the police is conducting. They are the best judge given the situation that they are in. But I would like to comment that there have been, as your report also stated earlier, that there have been reports of, people getting killed, died mysteriously, especially after the war, the Russia-Ukraine war has started, the so-called special military operations. Many of those who have been killed have been critics of Putin. And it's not only that, some of them you pointed out, in the past also, there has been a history where the opponents of the ruling elite have died mysteriously. You mentioned Boris Nemtsov. Then in 2006, there was Anna Politkovskaya. Then Sergei Skripal, if you remember, in London, he was poisoned, but he somehow survived. Alexander Litvinenko again in 2006. So there has been a history, and it seems a pattern. But I have some doubts that how Pavel Antov landed in Rayagada in Odisha, and the way that his friend died or his colleague died. There are still 2 surviving Russians of that group. I think police would investigate them naturally, and it needs to be investigated thoroughly. The way that the things have moved in India and the way that the things are moving in Russia, vis-a-vis Putin and the war, it needs to be investigated. in Russia, there has been no opposition of Vladimir Putin in politics, in otherwise. He is a very popular leader. The popularity resides basically also because his ideas, his political viewpoint has never been questioned by anyone. Largely because the opposition have been crushed in Russia. This particular incident that happened in India, I mean, it's obviously very serious. And the way that it has happened, there was one death a day before, and the next or 2 days after, this gentleman, Pavel Antov, died. It raised some eyebrows, and it needs to be thoroughly investigated. I don't want to make, don't want to prejudge anything, but it has something to do with Russian politics, Samya.
Absolutely, Professor. And now let me take that question across to our political analyst, Tanvi Pruthi, because you know what Mr. Amitabh was saying over there was very pertinent, that it appears that there are no critics of Putin. Anybody who is a known critic who talks against Putin, for that matter, ends up being silenced in these mysterious circumstances. There's nobody jumping to the conclusion right now since the investigation is still underway. But Russia does share a very friendly ties with India. Do you think that these are going to impact the ties in any way? But shouldn't the Indian government also issue a statement so that there is some clarity, because he wasn't just any tourist. He was a diplomat, a parliamentarian, and a wealthy one at that, with a power to be able to have a say when it comes to the policies of Putin that he did not really agree with.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me. Ever since the Ukraine-Russia war started, Russian oligarchs who have criticized Putin and have died in mysterious circumstances, there's a never-ending list of it. And now I think we have a separate list altogether of, such businessmen dying by falling off from windows, whether it's in hospital, whether it's a hotel room, these are very, very mysterious circumstances. So as a reasonable man, one cannot rule out the mystery element involved. But what's shocking over here is the response of the Ministry of External Affairs in India and the Russian government in Russia. The Odisha police has categorically said that we are still investigating. We are looking at the CCTV footages, and like you said, there are two surviving Russian diplomats with them, so they are discussing with them. But they said right now we cannot say that there is a foul play. And that's what, they've picked up from the entire situation. The case, I think it will also be transferred to the CID if it hasn't happened till now, but I think they are planning to do so. And the Russian Consul General in Kolkata has said that there is no foul play. And the Russian government has accepted this on the face of it. So I think that's shocking from the point of view of a reasonable man. If there was an Indian businessman found in such circumstances in Russia, say, so of course there'll be questions raised on what has happened and why that has happened. And we'll be waiting for the entire inquiry to come out before, jumping onto any sort of conclusions. And that's where the mystery element comes, the response of Ministry of External Affairs. Why are they sitting over it? They need from Odisha government happened as to why this is a law and order situation, and they need to make that report public, because as a country this is very shocking that a foreign national has died on our soil. So Indians want answer on this, and I'm sure that even if Russians are not interested, people of Russia must be wondering that what has happened in India. So Ministry of External Affairs must set out a detailed report on what has happened, and they need to make it public.
Pruthi, let me take that question back to Mr. Amitabh Singh, who is still with us. Mr. Amitabh Singh, when any death is reported in these mysterious circumstances, it is investigated threadbare before trying to arrive at any decision whatsoever. And over here, it wasn't just any national who was dying over here, but it was somebody from Russia, a lawmaker, a billionaire over there, an oligarch. So he had like this sort of credentials that cannot really be ignored. And when he is found dead in a foreign country, in Odisha, in a hotel, it appears that the statement that was made to the Russian embassy was very quick, in haste, and they seem to accept the explanation provided as well. Should they have also not waited for the investigation to get over? Mr. Amitabh Singh, I think you've muted yourself. We couldn't really hear what you were saying. If you could
Oh, I'm
unmute
sorry.
yourself,
I'm
please.
sorry. No, no. I won't prejudge the police investigation. The way that it has happened on 21st and 23rd, those two gentlemen died, and they died out of mysterious circumstances. And as the previous speaker was saying, that there is a pattern to it. People falling out of windows. It has happened in Russia. It has happened for a very important man, a Lukoil chairman. He was under investigation, and he was one of the closest man that Putin had. Probably, I don't know, it's not suggested that he also opposed the war or opposed Putin, but he also died in a similar circumstances. There has been history of people getting killed. That's what concerns us. Why this man landed up in Rayagada, and he was a millionaire. Forbes, one of the 140 billionaires that are there in Russia. He was one of them. That's what Forbes magazine has written. So it meets, the investigation needs to be done thoroughly without any pressure from any quarter. That's what I want to state. And the rest is what the police has to decide. And I can't be sitting on a judgment here. But yes, Russian embassy or Russian consulate should not have, very keenly watched the development, and the way that they have, jumped the gun. There is something amiss here. That's what I must admit.
Yes. Absolutely. We over here are not saying that there is something dubious about this, but there is something amiss that is really not adding up. And that is exactly what we were discussing here with our guests. I appreciate you joining us, Mr. Amitabh Singh and Tanvi Pruthi, on this very important subject. And we'll be getting you all the updates on this developing story as the investigation is still underway.